Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Hannah and this is A Date with Miss Hannah. So today we are going to be going through Ugandan economy. This is a course unit for guys that are doing BBA, BPSM, that is purchasing and supply management, and any other courses. If you're doing this and you know it is helpful, welcome aboard. So we are going to first cover topic 1, evolution and performance of Uganda's economy from 1962 to date. So first of all, we are going to look at what is an economy. An economy is simply a circular flow of incomes and expenditures. This is an illustration showing the whole circular flow of income and expenditures. Yes. So if you've done economics before, you've definitely seen this diagram before. If you haven't done it, if you've never seen it before, it is okay. I'll explain how it works. So we're going to start from the part of households, just right here. So when you look at households, for example, let us give an example of a farmer. A farmer belongs to the household. So if a farmer goes and grows his maize, he's going to sell this maize to a resource market. He's going to sell his maize to the resource market as an input. This resource market is going to process it into maybe flour, and will sell it to the business sector as a resource. So this is a raw material. With the resource market, they're selling raw materials, and those are what we call the resources. And these are going to be sold to the business. So this business is going to process this maize flour into maybe posho flour or into a more refined product or service or good, and sell it to the product market. And then from the product market, we are going to have more goods and services. So these are like the retail markets, selling them to the households. So that is the first part. And then we said households are giving inputs to the resource market, but the resource market is going to give income to the household. So when you sell, there is cash involved. So that is how they're going to have the income. And the business in form of costs is also going to give to the resource market. Product market is going to give to the business in form of revenue. And then we are going to have the households giving to the product market in form of consumption. So that is just basically an illustration of an economy. So we are going to the evolution of Uganda's economy. Ugandan economy is an agrarian economy. What do we mean by agrarian? This means it bases most of its activities on agriculture. It is mainly dominant on agriculture. For example, they're telling us peasant agricultural production has been the predominant economic activity for Uganda since pre-colonial times. Uganda's economy in colonial times. Asians became involved in commerce, that is retail and wholesale trade, cotton ginning, coffee and sugar processing, and very many other activities. However, the indigenous Africans, indigenous Ugandans were excluded from this wholesale trade, and because they simply didn't own any permanent buildings. During the 1950s, only Asians were allowed to carry out trade, and trade was handled by those that had permanent buildings. So most Ugandans had only grass-thatched houses and just these temporary houses, so they were not allowed to carry out wholesale trade. By 1959, Africans handled less than 10% of the national trade. Uganda's economy at independence. Uganda enjoyed a strong and stable economy in the years approaching independence. At independence in 1962, the economy was small, but one of the most promising in South Africa. This is Sub-Saharan Africa, sorry. One of the most promising in Sub-Saharan Africa. This was SSA, is Sub-Saharan Africa. At independence, the total GDP for Uganda was just above $68 million, which in today's shilling is about 177 billion. So in the 1960s, at independence, Uganda was one of the promising economies in the Sub-Saharan Africa, and it was really thriving. They had economic growth rates were realized and everything. So the GDP grew to about $180 million by 1966. So we are saying at independence, this is 1962, the GDP was at 68 million. And by 1966, that is just 4 years, the GDP managed to grow from 68 million to 108 million US dollars. So that is how fast the economy was growing at independence. The post-independence decade of 1962 to 1971 was a period of considerable economic prosperity characterized by, so these are the characteristics of the period between 1962 to 1971, or we can say the post-independence decade, or the period after independence, just right up to 1971. There was an annual average real GDP growth rate of 6% per annum, real GDP per capita growth rate of 3% per annum. So every time you're seeing growth rate, that means it was growing. So they're telling us we have an average annual real GDP growth rate of 6% per annum, a real GDP per capita means per individual, growth rate of 3% per annum, economic growth rate averaged 4.5% per annum, sound fiscal and monetary policies, stable prices, inflation never exceeded a single digit, the balance of payments was always in surplus. So every time you have inflation, this might be the increase or decrease in prices. So every time inflation is just at a single digit, the economy is working, is operating well. And then the balance of payments was in surplus. We also had stable exchange rates and foreign exchange readily available. GDP per capita was about $512 in 1980 prices, the fifth highest in Eastern and Southern Africa. So in the period of in the post-independence period, Uganda was actually the fifth highest, had the fifth highest GDP per capita in the Eastern and Southern Africa. Then we had a national saving rate of 13.4% of the GDP. Our national saving rate covered 13.4% of the GDP, and it was among the highest in the region. Exports of goods and services accounted for 25% of GDP, and these were able to finance a large proportion of the country's import requirements. So that is all for today. We are going to come back with the period after 1971. I hope you enjoyed this video. Watch out for my next video. Thank you.